Now, we're going to be having a good amount of quarterback competition during training camp before the regular season kicks off. You know, we got Marcus Mariota versus Desmond Ridder. We're going to have Kenny Pickett versus Mitchell Trubisky, and we're going to have Matt Corral versus Sam Darnold. And this is going to be a really intriguing quarterback battle. And when you talk to Panthers fans, there were a good amount of Panthers fans that didn't really want Carolina to draft the quarterback early. There were a lot of Panthers fans who wanted Carolina to improve the offensive line first, then address the quarterback situation later if there was a good one available later in the draft, which that ended up happening. Matt Corral ended up falling to you in the third round, even though you kind of had to trade up for him. They traded up with the Patriots, giving up their fifth and third round selections. But I think that you're getting a quarterback that's going to be able to come in and start right away. And as a matter of fact, I think that Carolina should start Matt Corral this season because, Matt Rule's on the hot seat. And you Panthers fans already want him gone. So I'm pretty sure he's already on a thin leash. So if you're in Matt Rule's shoes and you're on the hot seat and you're pretty much coaching for your career at this point, who would you feel more comfortable with? Sam Darnold or Matt Corral? I would have to go with Matt Corral because, we've seen Sam Darnold. And we've seen what Sam Darnold is. Sam Darnold is a backup quarterback, a fringe starter at most. Okay? Everybody keeps saying, oh, JT, you got to give Sam Darnold a chance. You got to give him weapons. He needs this. You got to build a good team around Sam Darnold. Do you know how long we have been hearing this? We've been hearing this for, the last 3 years. Okay? I'm done. I've seen enough out of Sam Darnold. You want to know one of the biggest life lessons that I've learned over this year? I learned that you have to be able to learn when to cut ties with people. Because me as a person, I'm somebody who doesn't give up on things easily. If I fail at something, I keep trying and trying and trying again until I'm going to go to the grave trying. You feel me? That's just the kind of person I am. However, when it comes to people, certain people you can only give a certain amount of chances until you have to cut ties with them, because the longer they stay around, the longer they're going to hinder you achieving your goals. And for Carolina, the longer Sam Darnold remains the starting quarterback in Carolina, the more he's going to hinder this team being able to make it to the playoffs, because the dude only played good in 3 games, the first 3 games of the season against the Texans, the Saints, and I forget who the other team was. I think it was the Jets. Somebody let me know. But they weren't good. And when they played the Saints, the Saints coaching staff, got COVID or something like that. So after they started out 3-0, they came back down to earth really, really fast. And I was waiting for them to come back to earth because I knew it was going to happen. Everybody was already saying that they were going to be playoff contenders. Everybody was hitting me up saying, oh, JT, you don't think Carolina's a playoff team still? And I was like, nah, because, it's only the start of the regular season. Let's give it some time. And, for Sam Darnold, I kind of had high expectations for him going into last year. Well, I wouldn't say high expectations, but it's I kind of felt like he would be okay. I felt like he would be decent. I didn't know he would end up being one of the worst quarterbacks in the league last year because, Carolina, although the offensive line wasn't that great, he had weapons. You had DJ Moore. You had Robbie Anderson. And even though Robbie Anderson is kind of inconsistent at times, he's still solid. At times, he's still a really good deep threat. He's one of the best deep threats in the league. It's just that, they couldn't find ways to get him the ball. You also had the play calling, which wasn't all that great, which they ended up firing their offensive coordinator mid-season on his day off. So for Sam Darnold, I've seen enough of Sam Darnold. Panthers fans deserve something new. And Matt Rule and the Panthers general manager, they've tried going the veteran quarterback route. Matt Rule's first season, they brought in Teddy Bridgewater. They moved on from him. Then you bring in Sam Darnold year 2. He doesn't really give you any stability at the quarterback position. So, you failed when it came to bringing in veterans. How about now you try to draft somebody, develop him, and see what he can do? Because for Matt Corral, he has the skill set to start day one. And I don't care if he needs to sit a year or whatnot. Matt Corral gives you a better chance of making it to the postseason than what Sam Darnold does, because Matt Corral has a super fast release, which is something that Sam Darnold doesn't have, which is something that a lot of Panthers fans always harp about when it comes to Sam Darnold, is that he gets the ball out too slow and he holds on to the football too long. Matt Corral's the opposite. He has a fast release. He also has a really strong arm, and he has really solid mechanics. Like, if you go and you read the scouting reports on Matt Corral, if you go to NFL.com or you Google Matt Corral's scouting report, you're not really going to see too many people in their scouting reports harp on Matt Corral's mechanics. Like, his mechanics are pretty much as good as they're going to get for a rookie quarterback. Like, he has a really tight release. Like, he has pretty solid footwork. Like, Matt Corral's mechanics are really solid. He also has the ability to extend plays, very good mobility. However, he needs to learn how to slide because he kind of has a slender build. And his running style, like, the dude runs reckless. Like, the dude just runs with caution to the wind, and he gets messed up a good amount of times. Like, there were a lot of times last season where he got effed up. Like, a lot of dudes will put in Matt Corral on their highlight tapes, boy, because he got messed up a couple of times last season. So even though he is tough, dude needs to learn how to slide if he wants to be able to prolong his career, because durability is a huge concern of his. He's also really good when it comes to his accuracy in the short and intermediate range, and that's why I think that Matt Corral gives the Carolina Panthers the best chance to win, because Ben McAdoo reportedly was very confident in Matt Corral's skill set, and the fact that he felt like Matt Corral would be able to transition into his offense smoothly, according to the Carolina Panthers general manager. And when it comes to offensive coordinator Ben McAdoo, who is the new OC for Carolina, the kind of offense that he has ran in the past has been, a up-tempo West Coast style offense, rhythmatic passing, three-step drops, getting the ball out fast off bubble screens, slants, drags, and whatnot. And, a lot of people consider his offense to be kind of vanilla, a little bit too simplistic. But, however, I feel like him having a simplistic offense could be more of a pro versus it being more of a con when it comes to, Matt Corral, because Matt Corral, the biggest knock on Matt Corral is that a lot of people don't really know how good he's going to be when it comes to being able to make full read progressions and being able to, dissect the NFL defense, because he kind of played in a quarterback-friendly system at Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin that's predicated off play action and a lot of RPOs. And when it comes to RPOs, you're not really doing a lot of reading. You're kind of only reading like one or two things. You're either trying to see how many people are in the box, or you're trying to see, who's covering who. If he ends up crashing down, then you throw it to this guy. So for Matt Corral, you definitely want to see how much he's going to improve in his ability to, process defenses and being able to make the proper decisions. But, that's what coaching is for. There's going to be a lot of Panthers fans who are probably going to comment on this video and say, JT, Matt Corral's not ready to start yet. But it's like, if you have a coaching staff, he should be able to get coached up and over the next couple of months, and he should be able to play week 1. And on top of that, like, Matt Corral isn't going to be in the situation that Sam Darnold was in last year. Like, Sam Darnold was playing with a not so good offensive line. This year, the Panthers' offensive line is tremendously improved a lot, and their offensive line should be really solid this year. So for Matt Corral, he is going to end up playing behind a really solid offensive line. You're going to have Chris McCaffrey back in the backfield. Hopefully, he can stay healthy. Then you're going to have DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Terrence Marshall. Like, you're going to have enough weapons for Matt Corral to have a successful rookie season. And Ben McAdoo, according to the Carolina Panthers general manager, he played a big part in the decision to draft Matt Corral. As a matter of fact, they asked for his input because Ben McAdoo has been really accurate when it comes to his analysis on quarterback prospects coming out of the NFL draft in the past. As a matter of fact, according to the Panthers general manager in a discussion with WNFZ, the clubhouse, he said that we've seen his old reports and they're time stamped, and he's very accurate in terms of his quarterback projections. Back in 2017, when Ben McAdoo was the head coach of the New York Giants, remember ESPN had reported that the Giants and Ben McAdoo, or at least Ben McAdoo, was trying to make a strong push for the Giants to draft Texas Tech quarterback Patrick Mahomes. However, that didn't happen. Then, in a 2018 interview with the New York Post, prior to the draft, Ben McAdoo was asked to rank, some of the top quarterback prospects in that 2018 draft. And he listed them in order. And the quarterbacks that he listed in this order, number one, he had Josh Allen. Behind Josh Allen, at number 2, he had Lamar. Then he had Sam Darnold at 3, followed by Josh Rosen, Mason Rudolph, and Baker Mayfield. So, the dude definitely has an eye when it comes to assessing the quarterback position. And also, another thing that the general manager for Carolina said is that when it got to this year's class, we did lean on him in his expertise, he added. And he also said that he really likes Matt Corral's quick release and his mobility in the pocket, his ability to see the field. So he had a strong conviction on him, and Ben McAdoo is a big reason why Matt Corral is here with the Carolina Panthers at this moment. So pretty much Ben McAdoo pretty much said that, hey man, I feel like Matt Corral's the guy that I can have the most success with in this offense. So Matt Rule is putting a lot of faith into Ben McAdoo. And not only is Matt Rule putting a lot of faith into Ben McAdoo, but the whole entire front office seems to be putting a lot of trust into Ben McAdoo because, we're not worried about the defense. Their defense is going to be really good. They have one of the best young defenses in the league. They have studs everywhere on defense. Brian Burns and Jeremy Chin are the two main players who comes to mind in that regard. But, for Matt Corral, it seems like Ben McAdoo sees something in Matt Corral that makes him think that he can have success with this guy immediately. Because let's be honest, if you think that Carolina traded up for Matt Corral for him to sit behind Sam Darnold for a year, I think you're sadly mistaken, because you got to understand the situation right now. Matt Rule doesn't have the luxury of being able to look forward into the future because he knows that there might not be a future. Because if he doesn't end up producing this season, he's going to end up getting that pink slip. He's going to end up in the unemployment line, probably going back to coaching in the college football ranks. If Carolina ends up not living up to the expectations that, the people and the owner and the front office have. So for Matt Rule, it just makes sense to start Matt Corral. Matt Corral gives you the better chance to succeed. We've seen Sam Darnold. As a matter of fact, we've seen enough out of Sam Darnold. I want Sam Darnold to succeed too, but it's just in Carolina, I just don't think it's going to work. And we've been saying, all Sam Darnold needs is a good coaching staff and a good team around him. We've been hearing this for years. And you got to remember, this dude was a first-round pick. A first-round pick has to be able to overcome dysfunctionality. A first-round pick has to be able to overcome not having the best team all the time, because when you're a first-round pick and you're drafted inside the top 10, the majority of the time you're going to a poor organization that doesn't really have a long history of consistency and success. So when you look at Joe Burrow, was he playing behind the best offensive line in the NFL his rookie season? No, he was not, and it got him killed. It got a season in the end early. You get what I'm saying? And even last year, he was still playing behind one of the worst offensive lines in the league. And yet, he took him to the Super Bowl because he had good weapons on the outside. So for Sam Darnold, it's really no excuses, because I've seen quarterbacks do more with less. Come on. Gardner Minshew had a better 2-year run than what Sam Darnold has had in his whole entire career so far. Sam Darnold isn't even, if you were to rank all of the starting quarterbacks right now, or not even the starting quarterbacks, if you were to rank every single quarterback in the NFL, including, the second stringers, Sam Darnold probably would be the 35th or 36th ranked quarterback. And I'm not even trying to be funny. I'm being dead serious with you. For Sam Darnold, I know he has flashes and whatnot, but at this point, we've seen enough. Give my guy Matt Corral a chance. The dude has a really good arm. He is really accurate in the short intermediate game. And apparently, Ben McAdoo views him as a great fit in his scheme and in his offense. So, honestly, I feel if Matt Corral starts, I wouldn't be surprised if Carolina makes it to the postseason. As a matter of fact, If Sam Darnold is the starting quarterback for Carolina this year, Carolina would not make it to the playoffs. You looking for a hot take? You're looking for a way too early prediction? There you go. I normally don't like doing hot takes. I normally don't like doing predictions until we get near the start of the season. But for those of you guys who just want a prediction, there you go. If Sam Darnold is the starting quarterback for Carolina, they're not going to make it to the postseason. Now, if Matt Corral is the starting quarterback for Carolina, I think that they have a very good chance of being able to make it to the playoffs, because one thing that I think Matt Corral is ahead of and Sam Darnold in several aspects is his decision making. And on top of that, like, I feel like he's a more confident quarterback than Sam Darnold, because I saw a guy in Matt Corral, like, when his team needed him to make big plays, the guy stepped up. The guy put his body on the line. Like, the guy played in a bowl game that a lot of players probably would have sat out of. And the dude got injured in this same bowl game that a lot of people say he should have sat out of. So that shows you how much heart he has. That shows you how much passion he has. That shows you the kind of leader this man is. Like, everybody in that Ole Miss program, they had nothing but rave reviews about Matt Corral. Now, I know he had some off-the-field issues really early in his career, but ever since Lane Kiffin arrived at Ole Miss, like, you've heard nothing but positive things about Matt Corral, his work ethic, his leaderships. Like, this is a guy who's going to rally the troops. And when you look at Sam Darnold, like, I saw an interview, like, a couple of days before the draft when somebody asked him, what about the possibility of Carolina taking another quarterback? Like, the dude was like, it's out of my control. If it happens, it's happening. Like, that's not kind of what I want to hear from my starting quarterback. Like, I want to hear my starting quarterback say, like, man, like, if they take a quarterback, it is what it is. Like, I'm still going to go. I'm still going to compete. I'm still going to give it my all. You get what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to hear none of that. If it happens, it happens. So, basically, like, you're going to allow Carolina to draft another quarterback and you're just going to let him take your job? You get what I'm saying? Like, where's the confidence? You get what I'm saying? Like, where's the moxie? You get what I'm saying? Like, I want somebody who's confident. You get what I'm saying? Now, I don't want nobody that's cocky, like Aaron Rodgers cocky or anything like that. But I want a quarterback that's going to, have some confidence. You get what I'm saying? And that's why I really like Matt Corral. Like, Matt Corral was my number one ranked quarterback at one point, and I still held him in a pretty high regard. So for Carolina, like, I feel like Matt Corral is going to do some really big things for Carolina if he ends up getting a start. And I've seen a lot of Panthers fans, well, not a lot, but I've seen a small amount of Panthers fans disrespect Matt Corral and compare him to Will Grier. Like, Matt Corral and Will Grier are not even the remotely same players. Like, Will Grier didn't have the kind of mobility that Matt Corral had. He also didn't have the arm that Matt Corral had neither, or the athleticism. Like, Matt Corral, Will Grier, two different quarterbacks. Don't disrespect Matt Corral like that. On top of that, if you're a Panthers fan, you better be hoping that Matt Corral isn't Will Grier. Because, you need a quarterback. Like, do you guys want to make it to the postseason? Are you guys tired of, being on the couch and watching your favorite team not do anything come January, February? Like, if you're Carolina, you should be rooting for Matt Corral to succeed. And, you probably should be rooting for Sam Darnold too. But, Matt Corral has more talent and more upside, and we already seen Sam Darnold. So for me personally, I think that the Carolina Panthers should be starting Matt Corral week 1 of the upcoming NFL season. I'm not saying they should just give him the job. I do expect Matt Corral to, win this job outright during, OTAs, training camp, the preseason. I expect that. So if Matt Corral ends up, starting week 1, I think it's going to be more because he just was the better quarterback and he won the job outright. So you guys let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that the Carolina Panthers should start Matt Corral over Sam Darnold? Because I think they should. I think that Matt Corral gives them the best chance to succeed. And I had somebody on Instagram talk about how, the Carolina Panthers have one of the toughest schedules in the NFL. Like, who cares? Like, what does that mean? You got the toughest schedule in the NFL and you want to start Sam Darnold again? Are you serious? And I understand you got to have a better team, but at the end of the day, there are certain things that Sam Darnold does that aren't really implications of the talent around him. There are just certain things that he just isn't good at doing. Like, he's not good at taking care of the football, and he doesn't really read the field all that well. You get what I'm saying? Like, these are things that, a guy who's been in the league as long as Sam Darnold has should already have fixed. Yet, Sam Darnold's been in the league longer than, Matt Corral has, and he still has as many issues as, you could say Matt Corral has. And you get what I'm saying? So also for Sam Darnold, like, it's not all his fault. He kind of got, messed over or screwed over by the New York Jets because they failed to build around him, and it kind of held back his development. And now, he has all these problems and all these bad habits that he never was able to get coached out of because of him not really having the greatest talent around him, getting punished. However, you got to go out there and you got to make plays, man. Like, I ain't see Justin Herbert making excuses for having, a bad offensive line his rookie season. Dude went out there behind a not so great offensive line and had the greatest rookie season that we've ever seen from a rookie quarterback. So, I mean, I'm not really trying to hear no more excuses for Sam Darnold. If the dude starts, he needs to get it done. You get what I'm saying? But if the Panthers were smart, and if you're Matt Rule, if I was Matt Rule, I would start Matt Corral. I've seen enough. You got to learn how to cut your ties. Because if Carolina ends up starting Matt Corral, I think they have a really good chance at making it to the postseason. But you guys let me know how you guys feel about this down in the comment section down below if you're watching this on YouTube.